The topic I'd like to talk about in today's class is fear, and specifically cultivating discernment around the experience of fear. Fear is an emotion, right? Fear is also a state of consciousness, but fear is a tool for us. It's not something to be completely obliterated. Fear is a tool for us. It's helpful for us to understand and gain awareness of whether we're moving into some situation or experience that may be dangerous for us. It recruits what's called in Kundalini Yoga the negative mind to be the risk analyst of any given set of circumstances. But oftentimes, that discernment and intelligence around the experience of fear lacks awareness. Right? We lack discernment, we lack awareness, we lack intelligence. And so any experience of fear causes us to run away, back away, or do any other type of mechanism that causes us to avoid dealing with the experience of fear. So oftentimes fear is the biggest limiter and the biggest obstacle that we have in our lives that prevents us from moving into our highest potential in this lifetime. Our tendencies to become paralyzed or compulsive when fear presents itself to us. This correlates directly to our ability or lack of ability to be in the state of allowing and to be in the state of acceptance, right? If I'm experiencing fear, if I'm not allowing it to be in my body and I'm not accepting that I'm afraid, then I'm doing anything that I can do to avoid, I'm trying to make it look like I'm going up, above, and around, to avoid dealing with that fear. And so whatever the universe is inviting me into, I'm avoiding it. I'm completely inhibiting the universe's ability to educate me. However, if I apply allowing, right? I'm allowing myself, okay, I am in a state of fear right now. I'm accepting that this particular, my perception of this particular set of circumstances, because it's not the circumstances themselves that cause us fear, it's our perception related to it, right? Because one person can be completely unaffected by a spider, and another person can be terrified. It's not the spider's fault, right? It's your perception of the circumstances. So if we can accept, all right, I'm in a particular set of circumstances where I'm in a state that I'm terrified by spiders, and I accept that. But radical acceptance is not about, as she talks about in the book, it's not about allowing that to prevent you from moving forward. It's not an excuse to prevent growth, right? Well, I'm afraid of spiders, so I am not going to go out into nature. I'm not going to live anywhere where there's trees, right? That's not radical acceptance. That's avoidance. Radical acceptance is, I accept that I'm afraid of spiders, but it's preventing me from living my fullest life. So how can I lean into this? How can I find a way to move through this obstacle, to rise above this limiting experience of fear and bring myself into a deeper understanding and discernment of what my fear is? Because on a deep level, as many psychologists will tell us, maybe our fear of spiders was related to a loud noise that was present when we were a child at the same time that we saw a spider. That would be some sort of a Pavlovian experience, or Erik Erikson, I think, dealt with that. For any of you people who majored in any type of psychology in university. So to allow and accept our fear allows us to gain a deeper discernment and understanding around it. And then, with that deeper discernment and understanding, we can rise above it. We can create a level of consciousness that transcends that limited state of consciousness. Okay, and this is what evolution, spiritual evolution, is all about. Some call it self-help, some call it self-improvement. At a deep, profound level, it's spiritual and conscious evolution. Fear, coupled with appreciation of allowing and accepting, cultivates this ability. Okay, and I'd love to read for you just a little excerpt from the book that embodies this willingness to accept and allow. And I love this story First of all, it's the first thing in chapter 4. Let me read you a story. On page 73, Jacob, almost 70, was in the mid stages of Alzheimer's disease. A clinical psychologist by profession and a meditator for more than 20 years, he was well aware that his faculties were deteriorating. On occasion, his mind would go totally blank. He would have no access to words for several minutes and become completely disoriented. He often forgot what he was doing and usually needed assistance with basic tasks: cutting his food, putting on clothes, bathing, getting from place to place. With his wife's help, Jacob attended a 10-day meditation retreat that she was leading. A couple of days into the course, Jacob had his first interview with me. These meetings, which students have regularly with a teacher, are an opportunity to check in and receive personal guidance in the practice. During our time together, Jacob and I talked about how things were going on the retreat and at home. His attitude toward his disease was interested, sad, grateful, and even good-humored. Intrigued by his resilience, I asked him what allowed him to be so accepting. He responded, "It doesn't feel like anything is wrong. I feel grief and some fear about how it's all going, but it feels like real life." Then he told me about an experience he had in the earlier stages of the disease. And this is where I'd like to drive my point home. Jacob had occasionally given talks about Buddhism to local groups and had accepted an invitation to address a gathering of over 100 meditation students. He arrived at the event feeling alert and eager to share his teachings that he loved. Taking his seat in the front hall, Jacob looked out at the expectant faces before him, and suddenly he did not know what he was supposed to say or do. He didn't know where he was or why he was there. All he knew was that his heart was pounding furiously and his mind was spinning in confusion. Putting his palms together at his heart, Jacob started naming out loud what was happening. Afraid, embarrassed, confused, feeling like I'm falling, powerless, shaking, sense of dying, sinking, lost. For several more minutes he sat, head slightly bowed, continuing to name off his experience. As his body began to relax, his mind grew calmer. He also noted that out loud. At last, Jacob lifted his head and looked slowly around at those gathered and apologized. Many of the students were in tears. As one put it, "No one has ever taught us like this before. Your presence has been the deepest teaching." Rather than pushing away his experience of forgetting and deepening his agitation, Jacob had the courage and training simply to name what he was aware of, and most significantly, to bow to his experience. In some fundamental way, he did not create an adversary out of the feelings of fear and confusion. He did not make anything wrong. He was in a state of allowing, in a state of acceptance. What a beautiful teaching, right? I mean, God, just when we are afraid of like simpler things, we totally fly off the handle and we get immediately recruited into this space of like fixing and control. And what a beautiful teaching is in that state of complete groundlessness and mental inebriation, he was able to just be able to dial in and declare his experience. And if only we should all be so lucky to be able to recruit that type of conscious awareness. And that's what all of this work that we do on a regular basis is about. This is what developing a practice is all about. This is what sharing in community is all about. We are evolving and educating ourselves to reach our highest potential of awareness. And that's not by denying, pretending, or pushing things down.